no idea.
Anybody? Do you know?
Do you think most women equate sex and sexuality as being merely physical?
I think women our age
Right.
think of it that way.
I think sex is sex. I think sexuality may be more how you look or how you portray yourself, but probably not the way my kids would consider what the word sexuality means.
Right.
That's probably true.
Yes.
A quote from a young woman in New York Times articles reads, "The vast majority of my knowledge of sex, safe sex, sexual manners, orientations, what is acceptable and unacceptable, etc., came from websites I ventured on when I got curious." Kids are increasingly gleaning sex education from web articles and pornography instead of in a safe environment like school, church, or their parents. How do you think that changes a child's perspective?
Wow, that's sad.
Yes, very sad. I think it radically changes their perspective because they aren't getting the benefit of wisdom that comes from people who have, more life experience and probably a stronger foundation in the Word. And that's really sad. I also think that a lot of the young people are going there for where I might have looked for a mentor. The social media and the ability to just Google things almost fills a void there. They can just look things up. They don't look for the older women as mentors as much as maybe I did when I was a younger woman.
They're missing the relational aspect of it and the context that you would gain from talking with a person.
I think they feel empowered by being able to look things up themselves, but what a scary thing.
And we have a role to be able to offer mentorship and wisdom, but if we don't necessarily feel like they want that from us, sometimes it's hard to step into that place. You know what I mean? Because,
I don't think they know that they want it. I don't think they know that they need that because all this information is at their fingertips. So why would they think they needed any perspective from older, wiser women?
But what they're getting is all sex related, all physical, like the act, how or what, and they're missing learning about how that affects your heart, your emotions, your future.
Yeah.
It's so cut and dry, and it's missing what God actually created sex to be about. So, because I'm guessing many of these websites would be pornographic, is where they're getting some of that information from, not just.
Or just worldly, like the messages that are in television, where it's just a completely different viewpoint.
So I don't know if any of you guys watched the Golden Globes this year, but one of the speakers actually thanked abortion for her success.
Wow.
And the audience went wild and clapping for her.
How did that?
That all the choices she had made, and that being able, a woman's right to choose is what put her here. Wow. And I just thought, that's what she thinks. Like, that's actually, it's not propaganda to her. That's what her heart and soul believes is truth. And that's what my kids are getting for examples of what is in this world and what to look up to in celebrity.
I was thinking about choice, even just driving here today. I was thinking about the power of choice and how that is an important buzzword right now, to be empowered and to recognize we have choices. But I think we want to convey to our children, our grandchildren, that they do have the power to choose, and that is important. But they have the power to choose their steps, but they don't have the power to choose the repercussions. And, there are consequences to every choice and every action. And that's why I think for example, the life movement is doing a really good job now of moving from just having an opposing, argumentative view to educating and letting women know, exactly what's involved and what the fallout can be if that choice is made with abortion. And, not abortion only, but even early sexual activity or whatever road a person would choose to go down.
Right, and media doesn't tell those parts of
No,
the story. You get the enticement and the promise of your dreams coming true.
Yeah, fixing all your problems.
Without hearing what happens as a consequence and the pain that it causes, or the shame, or the suffering.
Yep, an honest picture.
Yeah, and the right to choose freedom isn't actually the right to choose and do everything you want to do, but having the wisdom to know what's going to benefit you and what's the best choice. I think choice equals freedom, but if we let everybody do everything they wanted to do,
Chaos.
it'd be pretty crazy. Yeah. The average age a child first sees porn is 8 to 11 years old.
So gripping.
Do you think the average parent is equipped to talk to their kids about pornography?
The average parent, probably not. Hopefully, those of us in the church would be more equipped, and I think we just need to be willing to go there. And I think we're scared to sometimes because we don't think our children could have possibly been exposed to something like that. But we need to be aware that they probably have.
That's a scary thought, is we don't really believe that our children are in danger at such a
Right.
young age. And we think it's something we can put off till a later time. And by then, they've already had that exposure and the shaping that comes from that.
Yeah, 8 to 11 years old.
Yeah.
I would consider myself an average parent, and we were not prepared. I mean, that has come into our home, and that has been an issue, and we were not prepared for
Right.
that. We didn't, I mean, we were prepared of saying, we don't agree with this,
Right.
but when it came to questions or going deeper,
Right.
it took us needing to find answers for ourselves before we could actually go there, because
Right. How to navigate it.
yeah,
It's different than knowing what we believe and trying to instill that. We did that from a very young age, but we were also affected by exposure to pornography in our family. And how to navigate that when it does happen, that's another level of input and wisdom. I mean, we need the body. We need events like this so that we can be prepared and equipped and encourage other people so we know how to navigate those things.
right.
It can be scary.
Excuse me. That's one of the things that I love about, I've been able to speak with Ashley about what she's learned about the facts, the data that's out there about pornography and what it does, how it impacts us, and to be armed with that kind of information helps me to be able to talk to my own children in a more effective way, to understand what's at stake, to explain to them what comes down the road if you follow these paths, or even as they're making choices with dating and who they're dating and looking for a young man or a young woman who has stayed pure, and what is their involvement or exposure to pornography because of how it damages your whole perception of sexuality and people.
Yeah. I mean, we're whole people, and the choices don't affect us in just one little separate area.
Right.
There's brain science even that addresses how pornography alters the way a person functions. So it's hard.
And it's in their world, it's easy. I know when my husband and I talked about it, he's like, when I was a kid, you had to actually make an effort.
go
If
to
you
a
were going to
store.
do that, you had to go to a store, you had to find some way. And he's like, now it's like basically sitting in your bedroom,
Right.
waiting for you in the dark at any point. So sometimes it's not necessarily, it's just a curiosity for them. And that curiosity pulls them into a deep, dark world that they were not prepared for. Because it's just at their fingertips. It's just a different time for them. Are you familiar with Snapchat's new feature, Snapchat Premium, and how it's being used?
Anybody? Do you know?
We don't do Snapchat because I do know that they can send pictures and they disappear. So we've never allowed Snapchat, but I don't know what the premium is. I don't know what the new.
So this is something that we need our Across My Heart team to illuminate us on.
Right.
Most of the Across My Heart team is half our age. Why would you go to a conference where younger women are teaching you about sexuality? And why do you think Across My Heart is equipped to tackle the topic?
They're living in the culture that they're being raised in the culture that is current. Obviously, it's so different than the way that we grew up. These girls have studied, they've been equipped. I'm always just blown away by the things that they know, and the way they're able to talk about this topic, that it's even uncomfortable for me at my age to talk about. But we need, obviously, from the last topic that we just discussed, we need to be comfortable talking about these things, because they are, and it's just a dangerous thing to think, if we aren't able to talk to our kids about this subject, they're going to get it from
Right.
other sources, and
Yes.
it needs to be from,
More than ever before.
Yeah.
It's not, there's not a separation between kids that are raised, you know, with influence of the word and of the Lord and the world. They're not, like, there's not a clear separate line. And so we have to know how to, I guess, just teach them the truth and how to address that.
And I appreciate the passion that comes with the younger voice. They are studying the topic, they're talking to girls that are younger even than they are, and they know what they're talking about that way, but then they're studying the Word, and they know what God says about this.
Yes.
And then they're bringing that passion to us, who maybe have become a little complacent
Right.
or worn out and tired.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it just didn't affect us. Like, I just think I feel so old. Back when we were kids, but sexuality wasn't talked about. Like,
know.
and it didn't affect our lives because it was what you did in private with your spouse. Maybe, I mean, some people outside of marriage, but you didn't talk about
That was
it.
shameful.
And it was
Right,
shameful,
right.
and you
It's
didn't
not
have a discussion. It wasn't.
It's not embraced
It
by
wasn't
our
embraced,
culture.
it wasn't
Right.
proud, it was, and all of it was very private, what you kept to yourself, and now it's not. So my girls did one of the Across My Heart Ministries, well, my one daughter did one of the retreats, and I was in the corner taking notes, because I'm like, I don't know this stuff, because I didn't need to know that stuff. It didn't apply to me, but now it does, and my kids ask questions, and sometimes I have no idea how to answer it. And so I want to be able to answer the questions. I want them to be able to come to me, not hop on the websites.
Right.
And I want to have those open conversations and just say, what do you want to know? Let's talk about it. Or what have you seen? Or if we see something on TV, to be able to address that and have some biblical answers for them instead of floundering. And then, because I don't want to flounder and have them think, I don't know what I'm talking about, therefore
Right.
I need to go find somebody who
Right.
does, and get online and find somebody who's totally opposite our values and beliefs, who seems confident, and here's mom.
Well, I think some of it is just we've been raised to be private about these things.
Right.
They aren't so much, but one of the things I've appreciated so much is two of my girls are on the team, and even though I've been raised that way to be private about these kind of things, it has brought this topic out in the open for us to be just talking about it openly. Even my younger girls who are 13 and 15, it's not uncomfortable anymore. And sometimes I step back and think, I can't believe we're having this conversation, but it's good. It's really good.
And better with you
Exactly.
than somebody who doesn't actually know the answers.
The other thing I've noticed as my kids have gotten to be teens and 20s is that we become less and less their only influence and the only voice. So I'm really grateful for a ministry like this that equips the body, because they may not come to mom all the time. They may find other people to talk to, but if there are other people in the body of Christ who also are able to have these conversations, and who they connect with in a way that, because they do have a broader influence than just their parents as they become young adults. And I'm really thankful when there are other people who can speak into their lives, and I can safely trust that, okay, that's really good. God is working through many voices to teach them truth, because there are so many voices that are not teaching them truth.
And I appreciate that Across My Heart has so many resources that continue the conversation. So that my daughters can be reading the blogs. I read the blogs, and the Facebook conversations that happen, and the Bible study, all those things that keep it right in front of them, and are consistent messages to keep them on a path of obedience to the Lord, and one that will be blessing for them, protect them from so many things that the world is trying to take away.
And it can be a connect for you with your kids. I did my Across My Heart's Ministry Bible study planner this morning before I came here. And so it's not just for the younger kids. And even when reading it, I was behind, but so I caught up today. And Abraham, it talked about that God fulfilled his covenant with Abraham, and the way that happened was him commanding his household and influencing his family. And like you said, if we're each doing that, then when they step outside of maybe our home, I can trust if my girls go to your home that they're getting an answer, or going to your home, or going to somebody else, if we're informed. But if we choose to stick our heads in the sand and hope it's not happening or not want, then we're actually not doing what we're called to do, to be living in righteousness and to hand that down to others. So, what are you looking forward to learning more about from Across My Heart?
I have a lot of questions about transgender, homosexuality, all of those things that are coming closer and closer and closer to home for me. And I don't even know what all the different labels mean. And so to engage in a meaningful conversation, I really sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't. And so I need some information about that. And then, so that specifically, but then also, like I said before, the refreshing of my enthusiasm and my just staying passionate about this message for my own life, not just pass on to others, which that's a big role that we have as older women, the call to disciple younger women. But my heart still is tempted, and I still need to remember to look at my own life and examine if I'm pure in different areas, and in pursuing God's plan for sexuality in my marriage, and what kind of a role model that is. And so I'm looking forward to that shot in the arm.
I like the idea too of seeing where I've been influenced by culture, because I know I have been. So there's things that don't surprise me or don't appall me, or I don't look at as maybe negative or sinful, or I know I've been clouded. So I think to open my eyes to the fact that even I, who feel like I'm trying to be cautious, I'm still heavily influenced by our culture and by the things we watch and the things we hear and the things we read. So I think, and then to have some of that information kind of in my back pocket. So when I come up against that, I can say, I know how to answer that, or I know how to recognize it even. Because sometimes I think when it's an influence, you don't even recognize that you're being influenced by it. And then all of a sudden it comes out and you're like, where did that even, when did I start thinking that way? Or when did I start thinking that was okay? Or, and the transgender and homosexuality too. Like I keep talking to my kids about loving people, but there's truth as well. And then how do you mesh those? And I don't know, like we're figuring that out ourselves. How do you make those both be truth in your life, that you're loving, but can also speak truth? And that's difficult. So to have some information and something to go to build on that. I'm looking forward to that.
A quote comes to mind that I've heard repeatedly. I don't know who said it, but in the absence of biblical conviction, we will go the way of our culture because it looks normal. And so in a very subtle way, even we can be influenced by what's expected of women, what we should look like, how we should present, certain image. Our identities are under fire as well, and we need to renew our minds by something that's solid and foundational, by the word, and not just by, what do we think, or what do we feel looks best, or what are people doing around us. And so I'm grateful for this message.
I think they have a lot to share. I've just been reminded recently about what a blessing it is. I keep thinking of my two daughters that are on this team and how they have so surpassed what I'm capable of doing and what I'm capable of knowing. And this kind of goes back to the previous question about what do women half our age have to share with us. I just think they have a lot to share with us because that is the way God designed our families to be and our churches to be raising up the next generation of biblical womanhood. And I just think we have a lot to learn from them. I'm not even sure what exactly it will be this time, but I have been around them enough to know that it's pretty inspiring to hear them passionately pursue purity, holistic purity, and it encompasses so many more things than what we initially think that might mean.
Right. And they're teaching from the Word, so how ignorant of us to think that just because they're younger, it's
Right.
not applicable to us, because if it's from God's Word, regardless of
will
what
be.
age it's coming from the mouth of babes, right? Like, you just never know where you're going to glean wisdom, and so age, when you're in wisdom and in the Word, has nothing to do
Right.
with that, so.